Hello everyone, this is Fadi and I'd like to welcome you to another video of this new series that we are launching, which is Islam and Atheism. And we've been basically focusing most of our examples and efforts on tying the gap between those who are ex-Muslims claiming to be atheists and the moral behavior of the Prophet of Islam, and showing that there is some tension here that they need to pay attention to. And with me here, of course, in studio to continue this discussion is Dr. David Wood. David, thank you so much for joining us again. What are we going to discuss today in relationship to that?
Well, we've talked about, in previous episodes, we've talked about Muhammad having sex with his slave girl, Mary the Copt. We talked about Muslims, the wider group of Muslims who were allowed to have sex with their female captives. But now we're just going to look at Muhammad's black slaves, because there's a common belief among Muslims today that Muhammad abolished slavery. It's absolute nonsense according to the Muslim sources. And there are Muslims who will just flat out lie. Reza Aslan, who portrays himself as a Muslim scholar, once said, speaking to an audience, he said, the first thing that Muhammad did when he rose to power was free all slaves. It's total nonsense. Muhammad bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves. And let's go ahead and look at a few examples. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger was on a journey, and he had a black slave called Anjasha. And he was driving the camels very fast, and there were women riding on those camels. Allah's messenger said, Waihaka, O Anjasha, drive slowly the camels with the glass vessels, i.e. the women. So here, once again, we have one of Muhammad's black slaves, Anjasha, and it doesn't sound like he was free. He's called a black slave. All right, next passage. Sunan an-Nasai 3858. It was narrated that Abu Hurairah said, we were with the messenger of Allah in the year of Khaybar, and we did not get any spoils of war except for wealth, goods, and clothes. Now that's weird. What? You didn't get any spoils of war except for wealth, goods, and clothes? That's normally what you mean by spoils of war. What they really mean here is we didn't get any women. Then a man from Banu ad-Dubayb, who was called Rifa bin Zayd, gave the messenger of Allah a black slave who was called Middam. The messenger of Allah set out for Wadi al-Qura. When we were in Wadi al-Qura, while Middam was unloading the luggage of the messenger of Allah, an arrow came and killed him. The people said, congratulations, you will go to paradise. But the messenger of Allah said, no, by the one in whose hand is my soul, the cloak that he took from the spoils of war on the day of Khaybar is burning him with fire. So, there's lots in that hadith to look at, but notice we have passage after passage after passage in the Muslim sources talking about Muhammad's black slaves. So it's absolutely delusional for Muslims to say that Muhammad simply freed all slaves and he didn't have slaves. Muhammad had dozens of male and female slaves, and we know that he would have sex with his female slaves. So there's just no way around this. Now, the problem here is that you have the reason Muslims are going around claiming that Muhammad liberated slaves and so on is because they've come to believe that slavery is wrong. They believe that slavery is wrong, and so obviously if Muhammad is the moral pattern of conduct and slavery is wrong, he's not going to be buying, selling, trading black African slaves. He's not going to do it, right? Well, what happens when we actually open the sources and we find that Muhammad had all kinds of slaves? Well, some Muslims leave Islam. And some of those Muslims who leave Islam become Christians. Some of those Muslims who leave Islam become atheists. Our concern here and throughout this series is the Muslims who become atheists because they can't reconcile their belief that Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for all humanity with the claim that he bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves. They can't get their minds around that. They can't reconcile that. And so they leave Islam. And some of them, again, become atheists. But for those who become atheists, they think that they got away from the problem, but now they've brought on a new problem. Because the reason someone would believe that slavery is wrong is because you believe that people have some sort of intrinsic worth and dignity. And you might say, hey, even though earlier civilizations, it was just a reality that there was slavery and so on, it's ultimately wrong and ultimately something that human beings have to do away with and abolish. But when you have the greatest pattern of conduct for mankind, having these slaves, having sex with his slaves, then you've got a problem, right? Then you've got a great pattern of a guy who's supposed to be the ideal pattern of conduct for human beings, the one that we're supposed to imitate, and he's the one out there with all of these black African slaves. And so atheists, there are plenty of atheists who would look at this and say, nope, Muhammad was wrong right here. But on what basis do you say that it's wrong to have a slave? What basis? We understand you say it's wrong, but guess what? If you went, a few centuries ago, you probably wouldn't have said that. If you were, on what basis would you have said it? So it changes from country to country and from time to time. We understand that people who are raised today believe that you shouldn't buy and sell and own slaves. What's the status of that belief? Are you right and everyone else is wrong? What decides who's right and who's wrong here? And if you think about the perspective of an atheist, I mean, I own my toaster. That's a machine for turning bread into toast. Why can't I own what Richard Dawkins calls a machine for propagating DNA?
That's right.
They're both machines. Why is it okay to own one machine and not okay and it's wrong and immoral to own another machine? And you could say, well, the human being's a living thing. Well, okay, dogs. We own dogs. We own cows.
That's a living thing too.
Yeah, so these are living things. Why should you not own a human being? And the only real basis here is that human beings are created in the image of God. They're in a different category. They have, as God's representatives on earth, they have a special dignity that other things simply do not have. That's why you do it. But you don't have any of that if you're an atheist. And so the atheist is stuck in a position where he's appealing to values that are associated with theism, namely that we're created equally in the eyes of God, that there's no favoritism with God, that we're created in the image of God, and therefore we have a special status that sets us apart from everything else in creation. But that's just false. It's just false according to atheism. We are like everything else. We have certain abilities that other things don't have, but other things have abilities that we don't have. And so who decides that we are the ones that should not be enslaved? Well, the real answer is that atheists who are appalled by slavery today, it's just because they've been raised in an environment where people believe that slavery is wrong. They have no actual basis for making that claim. And so here's the problem. For atheists who were once Muslims and left Islam because they saw the things Muhammad was doing, if they objected to Muhammad and his owning and treatment and sex with slaves, and they left Islam because they thought that was wrong, well, now they've got an ideology that can't even condemn that behavior. They can condemn it based on their feelings. They can condemn it based on the society they're in, but they can't say that it was wrong for him in his time and so on. And so if they really want to cling to their moral view of Muhammad, they need a foundation for that, and atheism can't provide that foundation.
Absolutely. And of course, and rightfully so. And you can see, of course, if you are an ex-Muslim claiming to be an atheist, the tension that is rising now, the problem that is being created. So you may have thought of solving one problem, but now you have to deal with a different problem altogether. And obviously, the fact that we are made in the image of God comes only from the Bible. And therefore, Jesus Christ decided also to take on the form of a servant in the likeness of man to come and save us from our own sin. Notice, he came to serve, not to be served, unlike the Prophet of Islam who has slaves to serve him. That's our invitation to you, to consider Christ as the only solution. As always, thank you, my brother. And in next video, we will visit yet another one of those moral problems. Thank you for joining us. God bless. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We can't make these quality videos without the help of partners like you. So please consider becoming a Patreon supporter today at patreon.com/CIRA International. I want to make sure you always get notified when we release a new video. So please click the bell to be notified. And of course, make sure to subscribe to this channel. If this video was helpful to you, please click the thumbs up. Thank you.